Welcome again to our session. Thank you so much for coming and for being close and warm. It's getting warmer a bit. Yes, yeah, because we have reduced the aircon a little bit. So because of time, let us start. Yes. My name is Lulu Noble. I'm the Managing Director of Clowns Without Borders, South Africa. We are a non-profit organization based in South Africa, and most of our work is on parenting for lifelong health. But the parenting for lifelong health, I will explain now what it is, but it's broader than us. So the reason why I'm here to present, it's because our organization is the implementing agency for Parenting for Lifelong Health Network. So all the programs that you will see under PLH abbreviation are programs that Clowns Without Borders trains on. So in terms of the training, we'll talk about it again. So it's more of an experiential approach that you use. And so I would like to prepare you that if you say experiential, so I'm not going to be showing a video here, but a video will be created here, if it's okay with you. Is it good? Yes. All right. Perfect. So with a brief introduction, the Parenting for Lifelong Health is a network of both the academia and then the NGOs. So the academics, as you'll see there, are different universities. And then right there, you can see the round one in yellow, which is Clowns Without Borders. So these are the organizations, these are the universities that have come together to look at issues of parenting, to say what kind of programs can be researched and then developed and then handed over for implementation. But the programs that are run by PLH are evidence-based programs, which means that for the programs to start being implemented, they need to be rigorously tested to ensure that whatever we present to families as alternative ways are ways that we have seen that they are not harmful. One would ask, why positive parenting? And then I will give you an ABC response to that. The first one would be positive parenting is about attachment. And the more securely children are attached to their parents, the less likely they are to grow up to become aggressive, because already within the family, they would have experienced love and care, and then that enables them to be able to attach positively to their parents and then be able to attach to other relationships in a positive manner. Then the second one is behavioral management. Through positive discipline, parents teach children what they want children to do, not what they don't want them to do. So many a times we as parents will say, don't touch that. Stop doing that. So every time we have a negative way of saying things instead of saying what we want to see and what we want the children to do. For example, when we say, I don't want you to come late at home, instead of saying something specific like, I would like you to come home at 5 p.m. every day. So those are some of the basics and the groundwork and the basics for the programs that we run, which enhances positive parenting. Then this improves self-regulation and reduces behavior problems, so lessening the likelihood of later violence. Again, it goes back to the issue of attachment as well. And then cognitive stimulation, whereby we may reduce later aggression and protect against bullying. So the more children are positively stimulated at a very young age, growing up in a positive manner, then it enables them to also respond in a positive way themselves when they are parents. Before we go to the types of programs, I think it will be easier if maybe we do our video now. What I will say is, maybe one would ask why universities are working with clowns. They used to ask themselves that question as well. And we used to ask ourselves, why are clowns working with academics? But through the collaboration between the universities and Clowns Without Borders, we as Clowns Without Borders, we used to have programs that use artistic approaches. And the artistic approaches speak to or make sense to the children first, and then also create that enabling relationship for people, for children and parents to interact. So that being said, one of the things that we use are songs. At times we use games, at times we use role plays. Those are quite key into our manuals, because you will even see in our manuals when you download them that a lot of the core lessons for all the sessions will be presented in those formats. So Clowns Without Borders' vision is for children to be children again. So as I was thinking about it, I was saying to myself, we always think about children as people in terms of age. But at times you find that as an adult, you grow up to a point whereby maybe something hateful happens to you and you stop being a child, and then you stop growing. And then you find that you are an adult, but then still you are quite young, because there are some issues that were left unattended and then that are hateful to you. So with the programs that we have, what we do is to create those safe spaces for children, any kind of a child, to be able to identify with their issues so that they can be able to find solutions together with their adult parents or caregivers. So what I would like to ask is if it's possible for all of us to stand and to share in playing, in singing a song. Okay, so the song that we are going to sing, it says, Zum Kali 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 Zum Kali Kali. Do you know what that means? Me either. And then it says, Dari dam 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 dari dam. What does it mean? No clue. So, because we work in different contexts, so we have songs that we sing that don't have meaning, but that are more about the experience and about what adapting into different contexts and languages. And through songs, we are able to connect. And you don't have to really understand word by word at times for you to understand. So I will sing, and then I will ask you to repeat what I said in song. And then we'll go on. So 1, 2, 3, go. It says, Zum Kali 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 Zum Kali Kali. 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 Excellent, you're amazing. Please give yourself someone is observing here. Yes, and then it says, Dari dam 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 dari dam. 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 Okay, that's it. That's all. It's easy, right? It's easy. Okay. So let's do it together. 1, 2, 3, go. Zum Kali 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 Zum Kali Kali. Zum Kali 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 Zum Kali Kali. Okay. And then the last part says, Dari dam 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 dari dam. Dari dam 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 dari dam. Dari dam 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 dari dam. Okay. Now, when we're singing, we cannot sing without doing some actions. So when we add action, so there's a part that will be stopping. And then the action, it's going to be like this. So we'll say, Zum Kali 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 Zum Kali. So it's like you have a spade, so you are holding a spade on your hand. So if you can just create some space for you. Okay. All right. So you are down there, and then we are going down, and you're working the crowd. So Zoom, Kali, Kali, Kali. So if you can listen to me now and then just observe, and then we can do it the second time. So it says, Zoom, Kali, 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 Zoom, Kali, Kali, Zoom, Kali, 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 Zoom. Zoom gali 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 zoom gali gali zoom gali 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 zoom. That's clear now. Okay? So let's do it together. 1, 2, 3, go. Zoom gali 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 zoom gali gali zoom gali 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 zoom. Zoom gali 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 zoom gali gali zoom gali 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 zoom. And then the next part says daddy dum. Then you say daddy dum 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 dum. So now we have planted when we are doing the zoom, and then now we are ripping. So daddy dum 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 daddy dum. So you can take anywhere. Daddy dum 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 daddy dum. Daddy dum dum dum. Louder. Daddy dum 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 daddy. At the beginning, zoom gari 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 zoom gari gari zoom gari 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 zoom. Zoom gari 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 zoom gari gari zoom gari 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 zoom. Daddy dum 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 daddy dum. 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 Yes, please. Thank you so much. You can take your seats for now. So what we have found is that when we start with the songs or a game, as much as you're working with parents, at first they are wondering what's going on. But then the more we engage, the more they realize that when we want to identify with the children, that space needs to be a space whereby we are relaxed and we are having a happiness and experiencing joy. And you find that some of the parents have never played in their adulthood. And you find that some of the teenagers that you work with, it's the first time they see their parents doing something, they will say it's silly. But then that on its own is creating that environment for them to begin those conversations. So these are some of the activities that we do, and then they transcend the language or the cultural barriers. They are simple, and then they are not about words, but they are more focused on having fun and having that experience. So thank you so much for participating. You were amazing. So you can enroll and be clowns. So in terms of the types of parenting programs that are available, so within the Parenting for Lifelong Health, you'll find that some of them are about home visiting, some are also about group-based, and then some other programs are integrated into other programs. So when you're talking about the home visiting programs, typically they are delivered to mothers of infants. So it depends on now the age group that you're working with, because the Parenting for Lifelong Health has a suite of programs, one for infants and one for 2 to 8-year-olds, and then one for teenagers. So it depends on where the church is or where the organizations are at and where they see the need the most. Ideally, to start from the beginning all the way down, and then some start where they are teenagers, where they are starting to have challenges, and then to say, how can we go about supporting each other? And then the group-based one, it's more about, it's delivered by trained facilitators to groups of parents. So the kind of setting we normally have is to sit in a circle. And because you'll find that you do a lot of interactions, as we've just done. We don't use tables, we don't have fancy equipment. It's just about the facilitator coming in with a manual and sitting down to create that environment that is conducive for the families themselves to have conversations and to find their own solutions. And then some of the components, then you find that they're integrated into other programs. A parenting component may be provided as part of a program targeting other things, example, bullying or dating. So we find that as well when we're doing Parenting for Lifelong Health, those incorporations, but also when we are doing clowning as well, where we find that we are performing, but the performance has a specific theme. As I spoke about the Parenting for Lifelong Health Network, so the programs that have been researched, that have been developed, are programs that are evidence-based. So when you're talking about evidence-based, one of the programs that we have researched, this was researched in South Africa, in Eastern Cape for teenagers. And when us as Clowns Without Borders were busy implementing the program, the research, the academia were the ones sitting in to observe so that they can do the research itself. And then in the research, these are some of the results that we received. The positive effects of the project, of the program that you're talking about. We found that the parents were more involved in parenting, more parental supervision, there was less abuse in the short term as well as some of them in the long term, because we did the research, and then after that, after a year, we also had to do follow-up to see whether what we received is still the same. And then less parental stress, less parent depression, more social support, less parent substance abuse, because you'd find that when you're going to do programs, as early as 8 in the morning, parents were already drunk. But then now, the more they engage and were part of the parenting process, we found that they were less and less using substance abuse. Less teen substance abuse, more planning to protect teens in the community, less poverty, better monthly budgeting. And then less poverty, one of the components within our program speaks to how we manage, how the family manages the finances. So you find that the more they are able to talk about what is available to them, the more they were able to manage what they have so as to do what is quite necessary for the family. What we also found is that as much as we have done the research, we have all the positives on the people that were part of the process. But some of the things that made no difference were about consistent discipline. So they will do it, so it was not consistent. Positive parenting, teen problem behavior, teen depression, and teen social support. So what you see here, more of the parents have been quite supported, but then some of the aspects of the teenagers as they go through life and through adolescence, you find that some of the things are not changing. But the good thing is that there were no negative effects of the program that we researched. So out of the groups that were part of the treatment group, none of them were like, no harm was caused to them during the research. So this is a summary which is plain in terms of what actually happened, and this has informed the evidence that now going forward into implementing this program, what are we implementing? Are we implementing something that is useful or not? Then in terms of technical support that we provide, it's technical support in terms of training of people who will be implementing the program. It's about support in terms of disseminating and scaling up the program, and then also monitoring and evaluation of emotional behavior and behavioral intervention, as well as establishing evidence base for psychosocial support programming. Now, this is the nature of our program in summary. So to say that our program is group-based, and then it focuses on changing the behavior, and then it also talks about social learning because we are using a group context. So when families are sitting together in a circle, they are sharing their life experiences. So each family is learning from the other family, and then social learning occurs, and then this involves both the parent or a caregiver and a teenager. So in our teenage program, you find that we're not just working with parents, whether it's a parent or it's a grandmother, a grandfather, an uncle, anyone who represents a family, but you're also working with the teenager, him or herself, so that they can have that space to interact in a group session and then go back home to do the same. This is the model that we use in all our PLH programs. It varies a bit, but then the idea behind the model that we use is that when you're talking parenting, if in your mind you can just think, when I'm thinking about being a parent, what is the first word that comes to me? Just think. Discipline. Sorry? Your childhood, your experiences, yes. If you are thinking about being a parent, what does it mean? So just one word that comes up. protect, worry, you know. So you find that at times, like the one about discipline, we find that mostly people are saying, yeah, for me to be a parent, I need to be very strict because my childhood was very strict to me. Therefore, for me to be a good parent, I also need to be strict. Not realizing that if we are building, you want to build a strong house. So this is why we have this model of a house. We need to make sure that the material we use as a foundation is very strong so as to make sure that that house remains solid for a very long time. And the way we do it, the way we do it, it's about firstly, doing positive parenting. And how do we go about doing that? I'll take you through the sessions as well. We establish parenting goals to say, as a parent, what is your goal to be a parent? And you do that jointly with your teenager, where you are setting your own goals of what you want to see as parents. Special time for you and your child. Many times you find that we live in the same house, but not necessarily do things together. And then we are introducing that to say, now let's talk about having that special time. And then the third one is naming feelings and actions. We again, as parents, we find that when you're talking about feelings, we think it's something that you need to hide. So if you are hurt, you are stressed, you hide it. And it's not the responsibility of the child. And then the last one here under positive parenting, it's use praise and rewards. To say, when do we praise our children? And when do children praise their own parents? And this is one of the sessions where we find it's quite emotional, because we find that parents, for the first time, they are appreciated by their teenagers, because it's something that they never do. It's like, for you to go and work and take me to school, that's like by default, you have to do it. But when they stop and take time to appreciate them genuinely, then it creates a new bond between the parent and the child. Then after the positive parenting, mud walls have been properly done. So if you can see, what can you observe around these walls? What do you see? What comes out for you in terms of the walls? What kind of feelings or goals, special time, feelings, praise? Yes? No, I'm saying, what do you observe? What do you see being the theme around the positive parenting? Sorry? Worth? Worth. Yes, it's worth. Value for the parent and also for the teenager. And is it something bad? It's something positive. Is it discipline? It's worth. So with worth, you find that now you start having those, establishing that loving environment, that loving relationship where I see you, you see me. And then after that has been established, that is when we start to talk about instruction giving and household rules. And then we talk about non-violent discipline, because we still need to have it, but in a non-violent manner. And then problem solving. And then it's all about limit setting and discipline. And it's all around the sunshine of positive attention. So the environment at which we do it, it's very positive, and it's nurturing and enabling good relationships. I would like us to do just one more thing, but maybe not necessarily singing this time. There's something called where it's like it's not toxic. So if something comes to you, in terms of, if I'm looking at you and then I'm yawning, what do you do in response? Exactly. Thank you so much. So the mic is disturbing me, but let's see. Okay. There is something I would like to do with you. So I would like you to use your imagination. I'm carrying a ball. Can you see my ball? Can you see it? How big is it? How big? Small. Okay. How big? How big? It's bigger. It's bigger. Okay. What do you see? I'm giving it over to you, Tur. Yes. And I'm handing it to you. When you're done, you send it through. You can continue. Let's observe the feeling. Back to me. We're observing the feelings, right? Same feeling? It's a ball. Okay, I'll put it here. The ball is here. It's still the ball. the feeling. Thank you. Thank you so much. A round of applause. Okay. What did you observe? Mike. Okay. Whatever I started with, you stayed with it.
The emotion that you had determined a lot of what we did.
Thank you. Anyone else? Thank you. It's contagious. It gets bigger. Okay. When I was crying, was anyone halfway through feeling excited? Okay. When someone was laughing, was anyone crying? Okay. So what you observed is the emotions are contagious. And that was the word that I was looking for. So this is one of the ways, again, that you used to say. So if you are in a family and then you come home with your emotions, directly or indirectly, feelings are contagious. And then what you bring back into your own home or at work, somewhere, somehow, it finds a way of rubbing to other people. And if you imagine someone who's always angry, a parent who's always angry and then coming home, what is the environment at home like? It will be contagious again. Exactly. But do we pay attention to those things? And then we find that the children are the ones who feel it the most. Thank you so much for that activity. So it was, again, a snippet of some of the activities that we have in the program when we are dealing with emotions and also communicating our emotions in a way where we are comfortable to communicate our emotions, and also allowing the teenager to also be comfortable in communicating their own emotions. So in terms of the program, so we have just had snippets of what we do. So our program, especially the one that I'm just highlighting more on, which is one of the other programs within PLH. This one is the PLH for teenagers. The PLH for teenagers program, it has 14 sessions, and in those 14 sessions, the 14 sessions are what makes the manual that we go and train facilitators or trainers on to be able to sit down with families in groups to start such conversations. And the sessions are about, the first one about the introduction of the program and defining goals. If you go back, you think about the model, we are still building the wall, building positive relationship through spending time together. Praise each other, talking about emotions, what do we do when we are angry, problem solving, motivation to save and make a budget with our money, dealing with the problems without conflicts, dealing with the program without conflicts, part 2, establishing roles and routines, ways to save money and make a family saving plan, keeping safe in the community, responding to crisis, and widening the circle of support. So I'm just going through, I'm doing a rundown of the sessions that you do, because it's over they are done over 14 weeks. So it's one session, one lesson a day. So if you are talking about identifying with feelings, naming the feelings, it's one session. When we are dealing with anger, it's one session. So with the context we have in terms of time, this is just a rundown of what we do, but these are the sessions that we have, and then they're all about having that environment where parents and children have a space to speak to each other in a way that will be conducive and which will create a nurturing relationship. As I said, that we do not use tables. This is an example of one of the sessions where the children, teenagers, and their parents are working together. It's going, oh. Perfect. Then in terms of the program component, as an organization, Clowns Without Borders, having been the ones that started to implement the program after it has been researched, over years we have now experienced the important aspect of the program that when as a church or when as a faith-based organization or any other organization you want to start this program or to implement it, these are some of the components. These are the components that make up the program. The first one is program implementation and planning support. So here we're talking about how we prepare for the program and then assess the organization or institution or people that you'll be working with to say, are they ready? Do you have enough participants? Do you have facilitators? Do you have the venue? Do you have everything sorted out? And then the next component is when we do training and coaching of facilitators and coaches. So the structure of our trainings is we have the facilitator training for 5 days, and then we have a coach training for 3 days. And then out of that, when we do implementation, we support those trainers and coaches on a weekly basis. This is very important because it is at that stage where the methodology of how to do or how to present the program is, where you find that the facilitator needs to understand and to learn that when you come to that session, we are not a teacher, but we are there sitting down in a circle to enable a conducive environment for themselves to engage and find their own solutions. Solutions don't come from you, but then they come from the group itself as part of social learning. And then implementation with families, 4 to 6 weeks recruitment and a family consultation, and then 12 to 14 sessions with the family. So the groups that we work with, families, teenager and parent, need to meet once a week for 14 weeks. Each session is 2 to 3 hours once a week. And then monitoring and evaluation, where we do the pre-program assessment, process monitoring, and post-program assessment, where to see where we started, and then after the program, what do we have? And it informs the validity of the program to see whether it's still effective, and then it also allows us a space to see if there are challenges or if there are new things that need to be developed. And then assess skills assessment of facilitators. So here, when we do these trainings, the people that we train, whilst they are delivering the program to families, it's also as important to ensure that they themselves are competent enough to be facilitators, to be trainers, and to be coaches, so that when they go out into the communities, they are not maybe people who will be harmful to the families. So the approach is always important to ensure that they are highly competent in key skills of facilitating this process. So all in all, this becomes the program, the components: program, training, implementation, evaluation, and then skills assessment. That forms the entirety of the program. And then in terms of human resource, you find that this part is about the church or it's about the NGO or an organization that wants to implement the process, the program, and then this is what Clowns Without Borders on the side needs to provide. So this is a detail which you can interact on more if you are interested. But it's more about having the management being involved, people who will be on the ground, and then evaluation, and then the M&E officers. And then this team will be supporting the trainers, the coaches, and the facilitators. On our side, we have a team of technical program specialists who will be informing and supporting how the program is unfolding. And then we have the mentor trainers who are equipping the managers on how to best support the trainers. And then the mentor trainers are the ones who do training and then are the ones who provide coach support to all the team. Clowns Without Borders to date, these are some of the projects that we have we have rolled out. We have worked in South Africa, in Cote d'Ivoire, Eswatini, Haiti, India, Northern Macedonia, in Romania, Tanzania, Thailand, and Zimbabwe. So these are the projects that we have done, and others are almost at the end of our work. So in 2019. But in other countries as well, we've been in Uganda, Congo, South Sudan, Kenya, Philippines, Lesotho, and we are about to start work in Botswana and Ethiopia. And I think what you can see there is that the word about us having those alternative ways of working with our families, where families are speaking differently to each other, is spreading throughout the continent in Africa and beyond. And these are all under the PLH network programs. Then a question would be, in our context as we sit here, we sit as representatives of churches, we are ministers, we are Christians. So what do we make of the program that we have? And what does the word say about families, about orphans, about children, about how children need to be raised and what the role of parenting is? And then what about the child? So we have children, we have orphans, and at times we don't have orphans. But you find that a child within a family is feeling like an orphan because of neglect. So this is a conversation now which we believe that as a world without orphan, that we need to have to say, how do we best now make use of these available resources to be able to ultimately respond to a child within the word context and then within the church setting. Because Parenting for Lifelong Health is currently working Be Without Borders. So we work with any kind of religion, we work with any kind of an institution, we work with any, whether it's faith-based, whether it's non-GO, whether it's government, or whether it's different religions. So those are all the people that we reach out to. And then the question is, as a world without orphan, how do we now look at it and take it on, and what do we want to do moving forward in terms of such a response? Just a key points as we are about to conclude. One point that we need to look at is in an issue of capacity building processes. That is where, when we want to start, we need to have enough people available to be able to respond. So we can look at this program and say, yes, it's a nice to have, it's an amazing program, it made me feel good, but then for something to happen and for something to change, it requires some specific elements or components to be put in place for us to see that change taking place. One of the elements is about capacity building, where we're looking at how do we have facilitators, what kind of facilitators do we have? And then for the program to be effective, the facilitators, the coaches, and the trainers, they all need to be a specific kind of people with specific skills, and then there are specific requirements for them for certification to make sure that at the end of the day, when we send those people out, we know for sure that the families will be receiving quality programming. The second issue to look at is a systematic consideration, whereby we're looking at the program itself. it's about a program to families where it's direct intervention, where we'll find family groups in churches meeting and sitting down, where we are finding adults sitting next to their teenagers and talking about their issues. But that's not the end. The second point is about program to organization. How do we now begin to scale up such a process to make sure that the church management and the church structure is able to have capacity, technical support, and the program forms part and parcel of the strategic direction and support within the church. Because it's at that time where we then say we are making a difference. And if we are saying world without an orphan in the future, we are seeing that world. But then for that world to come, some real, tangible step-by-steps need to take place for such a change to come. And then the last one is about qualitative considerations. That in the program, we need to be realistic and say, no, that the culture is important for programs to be effective. So in terms of culture, in our programs, I have handouts for you, which are a summary of the program itself. I intentionally did not provide manuals because when it comes to manuals, every time you go into a new country, we do surface adaptation, where the manual will speak about things that relate to that country. So I will not speak about a grant in, let's say, in Congo, when the grant is only applicable in South Africa. I will not speak about Togo or the Gengeta in England, when no one does not even know how to pronounce that name. So we do such adaptations to make sure that they are culturally fit so that there will be reception of the program. And then functional relationships. So we're talking about intersectoral relationships and coordination. In one of the groups earlier, in the early morning session, we're talking about how do churches work together with government and work together with schools or any or departments or other organizations to make sure that together within that country we are able to create a world without orphans. Policy context, again, for things to take place, there are policies where we come from. Church policy, government policy. We need to consider such policies to make sure that there is a sustainable funding from outset. If it's not budgeted for, if it's not part of the policy, how can it take long term for it to be implemented? Evidence and fidelity, research versus real world. So the research component has taken place, but then the real world is informed by the program being directly implemented now, being informed by now the real experiences. And then the scale up needs to balance quality, cost, and capacity to reach large population. If you look at the projects that we're talking about, we find that the number of people through the programs we're doing is quite huge. So for those numbers to be reached, you need to understand what quality implications, what cost, and how do I balance the two? Because many a times you find that the more people you reach out to, the less quality you have. Like I'm thinking about one project, I think in Kenya, we are reaching to over 50,000 families. In Eswazini, we worked with about 13,000. In Zimbabwe, it was about 13,000. In Lesotho, 22,000. So you see those numbers mean that you need to be quite organized and have a systematic way and a dissemination plan, which is enabling you to be able to use your capacity and scale it up to be able to reach millions of orphans that we are talking about today. And as I conclude, so this is just a short, it was a long and short of the program. And if you need more information, you can have our all our manuals are in the website here. But if you can Google WHO and then you go PLH, then you'll be able to download and read more. Otherwise, you can also go to our organization website or email me if you need further information on that. Thank you so much. Live like this. this one, or okay, perfect. And then I would like to take this time to invite you for questions or comments before we conclude our session. The mic, look, is there? Any question?
It really brings into me the awareness, looking outside, how to go about making the world without orphans. But when we look into our home, the children, including parents, it's a good class that I personally got awareness that we need to see the children brought up in such a way where they don't feel in a circumstances they're orphans, like, they're leftover, or they're leftover with the situations that parents comes with when from their jobs, from their activities to home. So thank you very much for the good class that really teaches me personally.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Look. Oh, thank you so much.
After listening this session, it reminds me my family situation. So I have 2 daughters, and they are staying away from me. Though they are close to me, my heart, they are away from me. As brother says, we graciously, or maybe we make them affordable everything possible to see them. They are not neglected in the family. But at the same time, children feel that it is their birthright. Sometimes they say so. So, how do you suggest me, if I use the stick according to the Bible, they never accept it as it is needed for them. If I raise my hand sometimes, because I am human, no? My daughter is 26 years old, but she is not obeying sometimes. And out of anger, I raise my hand, and she rejects me directly, that I am not understanding her mindset. So when this situation is existed in my family, it's okay that I am doing ministry work on the ground, and I can well speak to others. But when I self-examine, introspect my own lifestyle, really I am pitied, and I feel sorry. And this session teaches me a lot that I must get corrected me first.
Thank you so much. You're raising an important point, especially in the Christian context, which I just highlighted to say the church, the word, and the family. Because that is one of the words that is used to say, you spare the rod, you spoil the child. And then, so when we say reduce abuse or harsh punishment, so as the church, where do we stand? I don't know, what do we think? Any comment on that?
Even with loan money, I spend a lot of money for their studies. I can give you just references. I borrowed money from the bank, and I want to see them, they are not suffering. But I don't wish let they come and repay me back the loan and pleasure and happiness. I don't want.
Look.
Is it my real current book, or it is seems mysterious like?
In working with children with an historic of trauma, we learn very much that it's very, very important to connect before correct. So also, rising up 4 children in our own home, I learned during the years that it's very important to develop a safe environment and friendly environment, a very loving atmosphere, and be very, very close to the child. Also working with children who suffer trauma, their reaction, it's sometimes is just weird, you know. So you cannot approach them in a way from where they are coming. So that reason, it's very important to connect before correct. So if I don't have a connection with that child, if he doesn't feel the atmosphere, if he doesn't see me as a person looking into his eyes and establish the connection, not just, you know, eye to eye and attention, but also the atmosphere that I carry around me. That's very important. When you were talking about, you know, coming home and being angry or so, that the whole thing brings an atmosphere and creates an environment. So I think it's very, very important to, at first, to create that atmosphere of safety and very closeness, and then the children, earlier or later, they were gonna let down their you know, because there are lots of children who have a history of trauma, and they are coming like this. So that's just a few things that we learn on our way. So somebody else.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing. Okay, I'm seeing you.
I just think about that when we are working in other culture and those people, how they behave and their emotions. If I compare, I come from Finland, I have worked in Thailand, it's just opposite. If you meet Finnish people, you think that they have something wrong, or they are mad or sad all the time, because we don't show our emotions. So you maybe make some, you know, some wrong, conclusion about their situation. Or in Thailand, is people smiling all the time, because it's not okay that you show all your feelings. So you really have to know those people you are working with, that you can see inside them, that what is going on. Then you maybe can help them. So it's interesting because my birth country and this culture is very opposite about this. Finnish people, they don't smile so much.
Thank you so much for sharing.
I just want to give a feedback to you. You're presenting a program that you are working on and the organization that you are working on, and as I can hear from us here, and it includes me, you very much led us through our own introspection. And I was thinking about my family, and I have teenage children, when during the session, and I became very emotional. So thank you for that. And the next question is related to my work. I work with foster families, and I would like to try the song. So I just wanted to ask you how to pick the song in my country, like the lullabies, or where to go, where to search the letters
Okay.
that we can use.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you so much for sharing. In the website, you will find the manual that we have. This is our first manual we ever had, which was printed by UNICEF for the South African context. So you can just take a copy of this one, but it is downloadable as well. And then through the inside it, there are those songs, and then how you go about pronouncing. And to be honest with you, you really do not have to be 100% know word by word, because it's gibberish. But then it's gibberish that is creating an environment. Yes. Thank you so much. Look. At the back. At the back, yes.
I forgot my point. Coming from a culture that do spank and use hitting as one of the methods to discipline children, I think if my brother here noticed that he already did this damage, I feel, from, hurting a child, even if he didn't mean to, the first step is to reconcile, just apologize. Many of the people I work with around me, the moment the father or the mother said, "This is all I knew. This is how I was treated. This is how I thought it was the right thing to do." The first step of forgiveness, reconciliation, to reconcile with the child, which is now maybe a grown-up, the first step of healing, the first step of reconnecting, the first step of attachment again. It all becomes with confrontation with the other person and saying, "I am sorry, I apologize, and you have to know I didn't know any other way." And I don't know, like this is in my culture, from the experience of people around me who were physically, hit, which is like even spanked. When the ones that their parents approached them were the ones who got over it and had healthy houses and healthy relationship with their children, because everything goes to the childhood, even with the new houses that are being established by these kids who became parents. So I don't know. Yeah.
You remind me of a question that we asked in one of the groups, to say the conversation was around, we were spanked, we were beaten up, and we grew up just fine. And that's what the word says.
Really?
They say so, yes. And there's one question then that was asked by one of the facilitators to say, so it's okay, you are fine. But let's just take this moment and think back. It was in Zimbabwe. Let's think back in your own childhood, as you're mentioning, of a time when you were smacked dearly. How did that make you feel? And what do you think about that moment?
Thank you.
I was going to respond to that, but maybe I touched on my first point because when you first brought up about the whole spanking, I mean, I grew up in a culture where harsh discipline is the norm. I've never received affirmation from my dad, so I've never really known whether he loves me or not, because that is not common in our culture. So as you were sharing, I was just kind of reflecting also, whether being spanked and all. I grew up this way. I mean, I think I'm fine. I know my wife and my 3 kids will probably tell you otherwise, but yeah, I thought this is how, I mean, I could only give what I have received. So one of the things that I know I said I would never do was spank my kids like my dad did. But in the same manner that I judged my dad and tried to become self-righteous, in the same manner I started treating my kids when they were growing up the same way my dad treated me. And I couldn't put a stop to that. And I didn't like it. But what was interesting was, I mean, as you said, when I started to dwell into the kind of wounds that I received from my dad and my mom growing up, and I started to find ways to find reconciliation with my own father, and when I actually got that final reconciliation, I mean, it took me like the last 3 years actually to reconcile with my dad. I mean, I held him in contempt for 25 years of my life. I just never wanted to have anything to do with him. I left home and I never wanted to have. So that was how strained we were. One of the first things that I did to try to reconcile with him was I tried to write a letter to him. Someone asked me to write a letter. I tried to write a letter. The first time I wrote the letter, I was very angry and was just blaming him. There was a lot of bitterness in the letter. Of course, I couldn't send a letter. I had to tear it up and try it again. Second time I tried to write it, I tried to be objective and neutral about it. Wasn't good enough. So of course I had to tear it up. third time I wrote, okay, so by the fifth time I got to writing that letter, I realized that I stopped blaming him, but what I did was I asked for forgiveness because I knew that there was a part of me that shut myself off from him. And the way he was for 25 years, how he was, I was part to blame. So rather than blame him, I asked for his forgiveness for not being a son that honored him. And of course, after writing the letter, I didn't dare send it out. But somehow I managed to give it to him, and that helped with the whole reconciliation. And only after I reconciled with my father was I able to get a grasp. Yeah. Actually, I wasn't sure who I was, whether I was the son, I was the elder brother. Sometimes I felt like the father. Yeah. But recently, at the beginning of this year, after I had the whole reconciliation of my own dad and my own wounds as a son healed, and when I started looking at my kids, and I knew there was one night my son did something really that got me to a point where somehow I just raised my hand. And the moment I raised my hand, I saw the fear in his eyes. I saw him trembling, even though I've not been hitting him for quite some time. But I saw that, and that at that moment, I found it in myself to just kneel before him and just ask for forgiveness, and to repent and to just ask him to forgive me for the times that I used to beat him, the times I used to strike fear in him. But it was only after I found that reconciliation, my own dad, when I could find my own restoration, my own identity as a son to my earthly father, and also to Abba Father restored, could I start to dig into the Father's heart and to give that love to my son and to show him the grace despite him doing something wrong. You know? And what you shared on the program when you did the 1 to 14, somehow I look into it, I was like, wow, I mean, there were some things in there that kind of scaffolds the process towards restoration and reconciliation. So thank you for that.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for sharing your life story. We really appreciate it. And I think it is in such conversations that we also reflect with, like, in terms of our own personal experiences. Luke, please tell me in terms of time. I'm still okay? It's time up, yeah. All right. Yeah, time up. All right. So thank you so much for coming. We really appreciate it. Thank you so much.